Welcome back to another Jazz basketball breakdown. I We were talking about it today, and yesterday that we're going through a stretch right now. We could lose a lot of games.
Yeah, we had a lot of games early on in the season against Portland and Memphis.
Yeah,
and Memphis
and we have a
and
Memphis. We have a horrible stretch coming up, and this was the start of that. And we were talking about it going into it, like, man, we could lose the next 10 games, and it's
starting with the Pelicans game the other day on the road. We could easily lose 6 of the next 7. We have a little Detroit break right in the middle of that, where I don't know if they were leading in the fourth quarter today. I don't know if they've won or not. So maybe we won't have to worry about that pressure.
Yeah,
them coming in.
No kidding.
But we've got some real games, and Miami's won 7 of 9. Was watching on some of those talk shows, just talking about how Miami's doing exactly what they did last year, and they're coming on strong, and they're going to be one of the dominant teams in the East, and they're going to grind you out whenever they run into you. And it's true. So we ran into a team that was hot and has figured out how to play some of their young guys as well as their vets, and they've been tough.
Yeah, this this was a game. They came in, and it was a very grindy, slow, physical game. And it's a game that recently, past couple years, that we would have just crumbled against. Right. You would come do this to us, and we were very much known for you attacked us with physicality, and we shied away from that. And man, they took on the challenge, and Keyonte George took on the challenge. Man, that dude's got freaking
ice in the veins, brother. He doesn't shy away from the shot.
He has never shied away from that, and this was kind of the explosion we've been talking about, right? That when are we going to see that offensive explosion? And he didn't just explode in the fourth quarter; he was efficient with it.
Yep, he was hitting shots. He kind of had some defensive lapses in the first half, but shored himself up in the third quarter. And then the stage was set for somebody to step up, and it was him.
And Markin having a horrible shooting night tonight, right?
Everyone
was. Our whole team couldn't make a shot. No one could. And so that's why this game felt like there's no chance we win this game, because no one could make a shot on our team.
Both sides weren't hitting threes. It was a Miami type of game. It just like last year, Miami came in here, kept it close, kept it ugly until the end, and Tyler Herro hits that shot right at the buzzer, right? You remember that?
And I know Jimmy Butler doesn't play. Down the stretch, he ends up getting hurt because he didn't understand what it means to do physicality towards Colin Sexton.
Colin Sexton had like 2 of their guys taken out on a stretcher today. That dude is, and Colin looks like the second one really pinged him a little bit too. Which I don't think I've ever seen that.
Yeah,
that guy's insane.
But still, Bam was having a great game. Tyler Herro played a good game, and so this was an awesome win.
There are signs, once again, 10, 12 games ago, we aren't even close on this one.
Yeah.
We crumble. So the steps that our team has taken, and it's sometimes I've been a little impatient, right? And it's felt like we weren't making the steps or weren't recognizing them, but the steps from the coaching staff and from some of the players to get in there and start actually looking like kind of a middle of the pack team.
Right.
In a lot of ways has been, I tip my cap to you. It's been fun to watch.
Right. And Will Hardy's adjustments in games have improved so much as the season has gone on. His willingness to hold players accountable has improved so much. There was a moment in this game, Lowry, towards down the stretch, Markkanen was just kind of lazily out of position, and we call a timeout, and Hardy's in Markkanen's ear, right? And you have to, as a coach, be able to do that to anyone on your team.
If you can do that to your best player,
then you can do it to anyone.
You can do it to anyone on the team. It's the old Pop, Smack, and Tim Duncan around thing, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else if he's smacking Tim Duncan, what
Markkanen responded. Markkanen came out and played well to close down the stretch. He ended up hitting a huge 3 down the stretch too, which is what you trust Markkanen to be able to do, right? Mm-hmm. He's even struggling, but we get him a good look from Olynyk and knocks it down, has a couple of good defensive stops. Something you talked about, Keyonte George, defensively, second half was much better. Why was that?
This is your stage. Tear it up.
He wants, and we talked about last game. Keyonte George, when he plays next to Jordan Clarkson, plays way worse defensively. He picks up Jordan Clarkson's habits defensively, which if you watch this game, they're bad. Second half, he played the majority of his minutes next to Agbaji. And this was one of Agbaji's worst nights offensively. Not one of the worst nights he's had offensively for us. Still solid defensively. He had a couple lapses, but he still works, still hustles and moves. Keyonte George gets with a defensive lineup next to another defensive guard. All of a sudden, he has higher energy on the defensive side of the court. He's not out of position as often. Things change, and that's what I was talking about in that last video. Is you can tell there are certain habits that Keyonte will pick up with the players next to him when he plays with Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton, Ochai Agbaji, Fontecchio. He has much higher level on energy on the defensive side of the court. Communicates better. He rotates better. Besides when he plays with Tucker and Clarkson, it is a drastic difference. And then fourth quarter down the stretch, high energy game. Keyonte is not just attacking this game offensively; he's guarding Jaime Jaquez and is in his face. He's reading where he's going. He is high energy, and Clarkson's on the court. That is what I mean when I talk about that. So you could say I'm blowing smoke with that. The numbers don't lie. The eye test is there. If you truly pay attention to it, Keyonte picks habits up from players on the court. He's a young player. That happens. It's why guys like Jaime Jaquez go to the Heat, and all of a sudden they start to play a little bit better on the defensive side of the court. They start to move the ball better than what you saw from them in college because they're playing with guys like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo who will hold them accountable.
100% true. That is 100% true. And Jaime Jaquez has nowhere of the offensive pedigree that Keyonte George does, but he's getting all the praise so far in the season. You know, there's talk that he's the third person on the Rookie of the Year ballot with the two aliens, you know. And it's because of his being held accountable, his defensive prowess that then goes into some of the things he can do on the offensive end. Now today, Jaquez ran into
Kelly Olynyk,
our version of Jaime Jaquez. We have Kelly Olynyk.
We always
ran into the slower hippie version.
Dude, we've always got some white church league basketball guy that, you know, it was Joe Ingles forever, and now it's Kelly Olynyk. That just has got to make people lose their mind.
Yeah, dude. And Kelly Olynyk taking him in. I mean, he's going to have nightmares about this matchup. The way that Olynyk smacked him around, it seemed like we were.
Kelly
hunting
Olynyk
Jaquez.
was going to have 50 points tonight.
Yeah, we were hunting Jaquez on the floor everywhere. I mean, Sexton was going at him. It was kind of easy picking there. Not saying he's not a good player, but these are kind of some of the issues that rookies run into. Keyonte George, if we can get more accountability on the floor from him and get him so that he's confident on the defensive side. His offensive side is, we don't know the ceiling yet.
Right.
That's what's so exciting. We don't know how high the scoring, the assist, the playmaking, the just kind of mastering the game out there. I thought that, Chris Dunn didn't make a lot of shots, but he was playing a really strong game that first half. But he doesn't have the offensive punch down the stretch, and so completely love the choice of Keyonte George with Colin Sexton down the stretch. And Colin was strong once again.
I was surprised how long Sexton was off the court because he seemed to really getting into his own in the third quarter when he got subbed out, and then he just sat forever. But this is another game from Colin Sexton where he is continuing to just create this list of games that he is making an argument that we made the argument 10 games ago that he needs to be on the bench as a sixth man. He is proving us wrong, right? He has elevated his game not just as a scorer. He has elevated his game as a decision maker, high energy on the defense, and having less out of control, just searching for his own shot and understanding when to do that. He is elevating his game over this past 10-game stretch where there's at this point it makes no sense to not start him. He has earned the starting position.
There would be a lot of talk among Jazz fans if all of a sudden he was not in the starting lineup.
Yeah,
I mean, this
he
is
has
how you
earned
do
it.
You don't come out with an article saying I'm good. Trust me, bro. You don't. I don't know who would do that, but you don't do that. That doesn't how you get your starting spot. You don't go and talk to the coach. You don't demand it.
You show it on the
show
court.
It. You walk the walk. And
he
had a rough start of the year, but man,
I'm happily surprised to be. I'm happy to be wrong.
Yeah. Wrong too.
I felt his role 100% had to be as a six man, and that's where he excelled because he had that high energy, high motor, kind of not really get a lot of other people involved type of six man playing. And since he's been thrust in this role, next to Chris Dunn, also he has been a much a more unselfish basketball player,
Yeah.
where he's still dropping 20 points a night, but it's more efficient and it's within the offense.
Within the offense, is not a rhythm disruptor.
Yeah.
If I can use that term, I guess it's not somebody that stops the ball. You have ball stoppers, and there's all different kinds of terms. But I was wrong too. And if we were to get some high level two and things were to get shuffled around, I don't know. But right now, he's putting together an entire body of work that you really can't argue with.
And you talk about he's 50, 40, 90 almost through the last 10 games.
Last, I think, 12 games is 50, 40, 88.
Yeah.
Right? That's if for those of you that know those shooting numbers.
And even he couldn't make a free throw tonight. So, like.
That's true. Somehow we set the rim at 10'4" for this game. I guess on both sides of the court. But, man. Yeah. Interesting how the reffing kind of went this game. There was a stretch there where it seemed like it was touch fouls, and Miami was getting all the calls and getting a ton of free throws. And then at the end, it turned into a gladiator ring.
They just didn't call anything.
Yeah, and we were allowed to kill each other. So, except for Olynyk, who, if you
dude,
and he'll
Kelly
collapse
Olynyk
out of bounds.
The foul on Duncan Robinson at the end of the game.
That's the comment I made to you is, if I played against Olynyk, I would fight him every game in the parking lot, because he would foul me out.
After you've been fouled out.
Yep. Yeah, after he kicked my butt and fouled me out and pissed me off. Yeah, interesting, man. Olynyk, a lot of his high-level performances, I don't know a lot of them, some of his high-level performances offensively during the year have come with real defensive lapses. I felt that today he had less defensive lapses and was absolutely impactful out there.
Yeah, they're really, I mean, there was like once or twice, but for the most part, there really wasn't at any point through this game that felt like he was just a huge liability on defense, that he was going to be out of position. This was a really good game by Kelly Olynyk.
High-level game, and it's against a bunch of his old buddies. He played with the Heat, if y'all will remember. He was on that team for a few years, so you could see him talking, closely with Bam Adebayo after the game. And there's been talk that Miami would like to have Kelly Olynyk back. He's a person that would complement Adebayo out there for them. But great game by Olynyk. The other thing I wanted to say is John Collins, another strong offensive game. And he's a player that doesn't shrink in these moments.
He hit a couple big-time shots in the fourth quarter.
He doesn't shy away from physicality, and he has playoff experience. He's a player that we would lean on heavily if we were to make it in the playoffs type deal. He has several non-communicating defensive errors that a lot of times look bad on his teammates because it's his fault, not talking and not consistently knowing what to do defensively before the situation happens.
Yeah.
And if he can trim a little bit of that up, and the comment I made during the game is if he can trim a little bit of that fat, he becomes a very valuable piece. There have been media writers here for Salt Lake and been talking smack on him, and some shows out there saying it's hilarious that Jazz may have overpaid for John Collins. I think that's silly.
We got rid of a second rounder, Rudy Gay, guys. We got him for nothing. If he doesn't work out
in a year where we needed to spend more salary to get to the 90% of the first
we had
apron,
to spend the money anyway.
And so it's a silly comment. I mean, you get your chuckles out of it, but John Collins offers a lot of value out there that a lot of fours in the league can't provide.
Right.
He's got some defensive lapses that make his numbers a little bit off and a little bit silly, but his corner threes that he hit down the stretch, a couple of them pretty tough, where it was up above his head. He has to jump up, get the ball, gather, goes right back up and hits with a guy in his face. That's tough.
I will
he's
say
shooting well.
I will say with that though, I completely agree and understand not playing him down the very end of the game, because there was a couple really bad defensive miscues on his part in this game.
And that's what I'm saying is if he can trim he doesn't have to become the best team defender type deal, but if he can trim a lot of
it's just talking. He seems to be one of the guys that, obviously we're not there. We don't see, but he feels like he's one of the guys who really struggles to communicate, because on ball he's fine. On ball defense, you talk about it all the time. On ball defense, he's fine. He can handle his own on ball defense. He embraces the physicality of the low post and stuff like that. It's when we go off ball with him, when his guy doesn't have the ball, we're in a zone, any of those kind of things with him, he really struggles.
The screening and the switching concepts, and the movement in space there, which is why he's so poor in zone. When we go to zone, it hurts him badly.
Yeah.
The more that we go to zone, the more that we lessen his role, in my opinion. But he's one of those players that the best players in any sport, I'll say this, aren't the necessarily always the fastest, or the strongest. It's they already know in their mind and they see the options that are coming ahead of time.
Yeah.
And they call it out and it's already decided. To me with him, it looks a little bit more just like he's going to roll with whatever comes and figure it out, and hasn't made that commitment or hasn't been coached or communicated with in the right way to get into that point. So, and that's why I feel that it's maybe, I don't know, you talk about low-hanging fruit. It's something that could be accomplished within this season to trim some of that defensive fat, those mistakes off, and he becomes a valuable piece.
I think that's the big step for this team, in my opinion. With our coaches and stuff like that, is to start working on the communication, because there's a lot of times, where you don't see it as often when like Dunn and Agbaji are in the switch or something like that with two higher level defenders, Fontecchio and Agbaji, Fontecchio, Chris Dunn,
or Kessler. Those they play well.
But when you get even an average defender out there that, even Sexton, I wouldn't necessarily put him as a bad defender, but I wouldn't put him as a, great defender. A lot of times we run into the problem where we're like half committing to a switch. You'll see both guards kind of like, and at that point, if Tyler Herro's got the ball, he's wide open. So that's like next step, right? What are the next step that we need to start working on? And it's those kind of communication things, and that's part of a brand new team learning to play together.
Sure.
A lot of these guys at most have played together for a year.
The growth of this team has been nice. For the first part of the year, I was wondering what we were looking at. I would say that the difference in those kind of defenders is if you defend primarily with urgency and athleticism, that's what you get. You're not going to get the high-level switches and understanding of concepts. You have to bring intelligence into the matter and the speed of thought.
Yeah.
Speed of thought is huge in every sport when you get up to the professional level. Athleticism has a large place in basketball. I mean, it's not like American football type of thing, but there's a lot of intelligence required in basketball with the speed of thought and the understanding of concepts, and being able to implement what you learn in practice. So I think that we have some players that rely more on athleticism and urgency than the intelligence that goes with it. Right. If you have intelligence and speed of thought and you put athleticism on top of it, that's the gravy on top. Then now you're great. So, anyways, just kind of getting some of my feelings out about that. We saw a pretty big trade happen today. I guess they're finalizing it. Usually trades don't happen in December. I don't know if you want to talk about that right now.
OG Anunoby and Precious Achua traded to the Knicks for R.J. Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley.
And Malachi Flynn was thrown in there too.
Yeah. Why that's interesting, a big part is Anunoby's been a guy that the Jazz have been very interested for years and have tried consecutively to try and trade for him. Came out also that Anunoby's looking for $40 million a year and is willing to take a discount with the Knicks, and that is absurd to me. Dude's had never even made an all-star team, and we just saw the Raptors, right? We just saw this team, and Dunn and Agbaji kind of ate up Anunoby.
He's always been a solid defensive player and a decent 3-and-D guy, but I don't think he's anything beyond a role player.
Yeah, interesting trade that it we'll see some time. We'll see what happens with Toronto taking on R.J. Barrett to see if they make some more moves. Pascal Siakam is a guy that has been discussed, could be moved also if they start to go towards the younger players. And I mentioned to you, I saw somebody in the Jazz comments mention a Clarkson and Collins for Siakam trade. I don't think Raptors would ever do that. You'd have to throw in some draft picks and stuff like that, but that'd be a hell of a defensive lineup with freaking Kessler, Siakam and
Have
Markkanen.
some great length and mobility there for sure. Siakam's a huge contract. Well, you've got to really appreciate the Jazz front office and how they understand the timing and when to do trades because, man, has Toronto handled their situation wrong, it looks to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we heard reports come out that Memphis offered some pieces and 3 first-rounders last year for OG Anunoby, and they turned it down. Not only that, they had Fred VanVleet walk away because they weren't going to work on trades for him. It's a Masai Ujiri seems, like we said, he got the green light after he made the move for Kawhi and won the championship that year. And he traded DeMar DeRozan and big-time stuff just to get Kawhi Leonard on the last year of an expiring contract. And if they hadn't won it, it would have been biggest backfire, and the dude probably would have been fired by now.
Right.
But they won it. Good for them. And he got green light, and I think that he's handled it wrong.
Yes.
They've had some great draft picks, and Scotty Barnes, when we played him, man, he looked like a player. But outside of that, it's I'm not sure what's going to happen.
And that's where you talk about the timing, of what we got for Mitchell, what we got for Gobert. It's why we know some trades are coming with this team because we kind of have to do some trades realistically to shore up some things. Obviously Clarkson's been talking about being on the trade block, but part of waiting to trade him is he's not eligible to be traded until next week. But part of it too is a timing thing.
Yeah.
You got to know when to make these deals and when not to make them. And Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck have been very good about knowing when to make the deals.
Very good for the most part. In my mind, I thought that Clarkson needed to be moved last year.
I agree.
We don't know everything that had happened there, and he's on a really trade-friendly contract now. Well, we extended him,
and think about it. We were offering way more stuff for John Collins.
Yeah,
years ago, and then we end up coming back and saying, "Hey, you want a second rounder and Rudy Gay?" And they're like, "Yeah."
All of a sudden, it got close to the new cap agreement, right? This coming up, the new collective bargaining agreement. That's what I'm looking for. And they were hosed, and they needed cap space, and we got him for Rudy Gay in a top 57.5 protected,
something like that.
Something.
Yeah.
So you gotta appreciate the timing of the trades and when to do it. There's sometimes as fans, I get impatient. I text you all the time. We should trade for this. We should trade for this. We should give everything for this. And it's just me being impatient. And afterwards I'm like, yeah, probably not. But our front office seems to have a concept, a finger on the pulse of the timing. It's been hard with how many combo guards we got this year, but we'll see if we can.
Well, that's even the thing, right? The start of the year to this game, we've made so many changes. Just the way our coaches handled things, that it's almost been good to have him have to go through this adversity with the players and stuff like that he had on this roster, because I think he's grown as a coach so much this year. It's been really good to see. He's obviously well respected around the league. Bam, purposely calling out to him to go chat with him. He's clearly respected amongst the league, and man. Outsider looking in, he has taken just giant leaps as a coach over the past, 10 games.
That's why I say up until 12 games ago, we're a different team now. It'll be interesting to see the growth we have through the season. It's always fun, and, we're extremely positive after a win like this, of course, but it's the growth of the coaching staff seems pretty apparent right now. There's still some things, not everything's perfect, and I'm sure they feel the same way. But, another game with no minutes for Taylor Horton-Tucker.
Yeah, and, kind of ending this, lowest minutes for Agbaji, and I've been the hugest advocate for Agbaji. I agree he should have had the lowest minutes tonight. He really wasn't helping us, except he did have arguably the block of the year for us. Which was incredible in itself. The dude, if you watch the play, was in the opposite corner.
All the way on the baseline.
When the turnover happened at the top of the key, like in between 3-point line and half court. As the turnover happens, he takes off. He kind of hesitates once he sees Sexton almost get it, and then they get it. And he is just down the court. He was the farthest player away from the play.
That's true.
When it happened, and he doesn't just recover to help make a stop. He has a freak defensive play.
jumps off the right foot, which isn't his strongest jumping foot to block with his left hand.
And then duck under the hoop.
Yeah, so he didn't hit his head on the backboard. That was kind of interesting. I really liked how the Miami bench was all,
Yeah.
just kind of from that other angle, you could see them all in the background. And what a great play. But wasn't hitting a lot of his shots, had a couple little mishaps on defense. Overall, still strong defensively, but that's one of those where it makes sense to play Sexton and Keyonte George. I agree with that.
Yep,
That call.
100%.
Fontecchio had an overall pretty good game too, and agreed with his playing time. So, and that was fun.
Yeah, good game. We have Dallas coming up Monday.
Yeah,
Dallas coming up Monday. Hope to freaking beat them.
Punch Luka Doncic in the face.
Yes. The physicality we had tonight, we need to take to Doncic and the Mavericks.
Yeah, see if we can take him out of their game. Let's see what improvements we've made, what we've learned from last time, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
Yeah, so we'll see you guys on Monday. Thanks, guys.